Hello, and welcome back to the channel. And before we get started, I just want to thank each and every one of you for the amazing support that we've received up to this point. It's just been tremendous. Now, today's video is going to focus primarily on compound movements performed with barbells and machines, again for the pectoralis muscles, but this time in an incline and decline position. Now, as you remember from our second video, skeletal muscles operate in an all or none principle. We can't partially contract a muscle. And knowing that, we can't just work the top or the bottom or the middle of the chest. But what we can do is manipulate the angle of our exercises so that the stimulus for that initial contraction is being targeted where we want it. Again, in an incline position, we're up around the clavicular insertion, the clavicle, the collarbone, and in our decline position, the lower pecs around the rib cage insertion. So today we're going to utilize both incline and decline. And one of the keys to that is in the incline position, we want to keep our bench between 30 and 45 degrees of incline. Much above that, all the way up to 90 degrees, now is strictly going to stimulate the shoulders. Now we want the shoulders to be helper muscles, auxiliary muscles today, to the pectoralis muscles. Shoulders are going to get plenty of work later, trust me. So today we want to keep them in that mode, so we're going to keep the bench relatively shallow in our incline so that we can stimulate the upper chest best. And again, a safety point in the decline position, make sure that your legs are hooked properly or that you're secure on that bench so that when you take the weight, gravity doesn't force you down and injury can occur. So with those points in mind, let's get started with today's exercises.
All right, the first thing you'll notice is the incline angle is not too high. As we set into the power rack, we don't have a dedicated incline bench at our gym, but the power rack suffices just fine. Now, one thing you'll notice is that because of the angle of the legs, the bar is kind of behind me just a little bit. So we have to make sure that our back is well secured to the bench. Low back is protected. We bring the weight out, lower it under control, touching the upper chest, driving under control and breathing out. Again, breathing out on the way up and in on the way down. You want to keep your low back secure on the bench. We're not hitching our hips away from the bench in any way. And everything is under control. And one more. Good. Now, one thing that you'll notice with some people is they do these little half movements at the top, and you'll get half the results if you do half the movements. Now, as you come down, control, drive. That's another good one there. Now, again, the bar is kind of behind me. The rack is kind of behind me. So let me show you an alternative here. You'll notice in this, the legs of the bench are behind the base of the power rack. If your gym allows this or you have room for this, you might think that this is a little bit better. Again, I'm more under the racks, the safeties. Now, the bottom safeties are really not in position here to help me in any way. This weight is very light for me. But you'd want to position those up about 2 more, maybe 3 more holes, and that would catch the bar in the event of a failure. And again, we're just demonstrating good form here. We don't want to instill bad form. So everything looks like this, breathing out on the way up, breathing in, pause, and drive. Upper chest, that's where I want to focus, that mind-muscle connection. There's the ones we don't want, so don't do that. And again, a little bit safer here, especially if you're working by yourself. So if you can get the legs behind there, do that at your gym. All right, we're moving on to the Smith machine. The Smith machine is a self-spotting machine that is designed for safety. Again, the angle of the bench is identical to before. I'm taking that shoulders width or slightly wider than shoulders width position and keeping a thumbed grip. Even though this bar can't slip out of my hands, I don't want to get any bad habits of thumbless grips. I've positioned the bench far enough forward so that this bar rests at my upper chest, exactly where I want it. Notice the pause, breathing in on the way down and out on the way up. in on the way down, pause, out on the way up, controlling it. Now, here's a slump position. Again, those partial movements that just are not going to give us what we're looking for. Safety first. Now here's a machine that we demonstrated in the flat plane last time. Here on the incline, I've got it set just above the bottom that my shoulders will allow. And you'll notice that there's a little bit of slack right there. Now the weight, I start to feel the weight. And as I lower so the weight stack just barely taps and drive to the next one. Again, breathing in on the way down and out on the way up. Now in a second here, I'm going to show you the improper way when you get into one of these machines that has that gap designed in it to protect your shoulders. That is not a running start on the next movement, and you'll crash and bang and make all sorts of noise, but I promise you it is a least effective, more dangerous way to perform that. So don't do it. If you're lucky enough to have hammer strength machines in your gym, this is a hammer strength incline press. Now that bar is too low, so I'm going to position the seat lower, which will bring the handles higher because they don't move or they don't adjust, and this will allow me to position the bar as if that were a straight bar up onto the upper chest. Now the great thing is this is a unilateral movement, and each arm is independent of the other. I'm pressing them together as if they were attached, but I can go in and make this a little bit harder by doing independent ones. Now notice that the resting arm isn't really resting, it's holding that weight in a static hold. So I'm going to control my breathing, driving the weight, controlling and squeezing through each and every movement. Now here you'll see the bench set up in the Smith machine in a decline position. That means the head is lower than the hips. And we're going to position this so that the bar comes to the lower chest. Now outside the frame here there's some hooks for the feet to work underneath so that lock you in so that you're not sliding down the bench as you take the weight. But again, everything is the same. We're going to pause the weight at the bottom of the movement, breathe out on the way up, breathe in on the way down, and control that the whole time. Now locked into this position, it's really hard to get this one wrong, so just concentrate on the movement. Don't use too heavy of a weight, and you'll be just fine. There's really nothing that you could do outside of that in this type of machine. Extricating yourself can be a little bit harder. Now this is a hammer strength decline press. This positions yourself so that if it were tipped around, your head would be lower than your hips. You want the bars at the lower part of the pecs, a little wider than shoulders width apart. And we're going to press and squeeze, feeling those muscles, mind-muscle connection, breathing out on the exertion, breathing in on the return, squeeze. Good, just like that. That's exactly what you want it to be. You can rest your head back or keep your head a little bit forward like that. It doesn't matter. Just don't strain your neck. And again, this is a unilateral machine. Each arm is independent, so we can pump them out this way or make it really hard, and the rest period is when you're holding the weight, so guess what? That's no rest at all. That doubles the effort right there. Now one thing that you'll see sometimes is people don't lock their bodies into a safe position. Their back is away from it. They're kicking and screaming. They're trying to get that weight up. That's too heavy. Don't even try it like that. You're going to hurt yourself.
And there you have it. Exercises targeting the upper and lower chest utilizing incline and decline movements. Now, make sure that you hit that subscribe and like button and continue to ring that bell so that you'll be notified of our upcoming videos. In the next video, we're going to focus on dumbbell movements, some of my favorite, and you'll get to understand why they're some of my favorites because of all the things that we can do with dumbbells. So until then, I'll see you back here.